You're listening to Clarity of Vision, Episode 4. Welcome to Clarity of Vision. I'm your host, Joseph. Today we're going to talk about my spiritual reawakening. I'm going to share this with you. I think it started when I was young. My mother was very spiritual, although she expressed it through religion. When any of us were sick, she would pray for us, and the hairs on your arms would stand up on end, and you could literally feel the presence of God in the room. She believed in interpreting dreams and that we all had angels around us, watching over us. When she was sober, she was one of the most positive influences in my life. I remember talking to my father days before he went in for a very serious surgery. I was still very young, maybe 6 or 7. It was early on a Saturday morning, and I was very sick all the night before, and I had prayed for healing, and I felt healed that morning. I felt passionate about what had happened to me, and I remembered talking to my father. He was sitting on the couch in front of me, and I was standing there telling him he didn't need to get that surgery, that he could be healed too. I'll never forget how it brought him to tears. For me, it felt as though something else was speaking through me. Not long after, my father had his surgery, which caused him to have a massive stroke, which unfortunately left him bedridden for years until his passing. After that, I felt my intuitive nature slip away from me. The passion I felt was gone, and I just began to try to survive my life in a turbulent home. School was a prison for me, and I didn't have many friends. Home was actually pretty good when my mother wasn't drinking. Like any kid, my life had its highs and lows. Only my lows were much lower than a lot of the kids I grew up with. In a way, those traumatic experiences gave me a kind of armor that helped me to some degree in my life, but also caused a few problems too. When I think back on my journey to get where I am now, so many synchronicities happened to make all this possible. My friend and spiritual mentor, Charlie, taught me that there is no such thing as coincidence. There are synchronicities that come together to allow things to take place in our lives, which shapes the path we are on. This next part that I'm going to share with you is not something I've shared with very many people. And it is certainly not something I put here for entertainment purposes. This is something that I am still evaluating and exploring. It's very important to me, but also very personal. So please keep that in mind. It was during the pandemic when everything came to a head, and I was drowning in news coverage and negative thinking. I was afraid, angry at the president. I was angry about the whole George Floyd situation, and I couldn't stand it anymore. And I went into my office and began typing on the computer all my frustrations, all my worries, asking why things were this way. To my astonishment, I began to get answers back in the form of downloads, mental brain dumps of information that I furiously typed as fast as I could. Was I channeling? I didn't know. I didn't really believe it at first. My Christian upbringing told me this was wrong and dangerous. My rational mind said this is nothing more than your subconscious expressing itself. However, I kept doing it, asking more and more questions. This was my first session. I asked, "Can you please share with me and others that read this who you are and why you are sharing this message?" Yes, we are a collective of multidimensional beings that speak with one voice, one mind, one heart. We do not come from the physical world as you perceive it. We live in a higher dimension that shares physical space with your reality, but is not a part of it. We live outside of time and live in the eternal now. We were not always living outside of time. In fact, long ago, we were quite similar to where you are now. We are sharing this message with you because it is our duty to help you through this difficult crossroads where you currently stand as a species. Our purpose is to help you realize your own gifts and power, your ability to save yourselves from enslavement, to help you remember who you really are. What is your name? Although we are not from the star system you would call the Pleiades, this description suits us well. Why Pleiades? Because that name represents hope, love, and empathy in your culture. When others channel messages from the Pleiades or are contacted by Pleiadians, is that you? Yes, but not always. Many groups, both negative and positive, have used this name as a descriptor because of its meaning in your culture. Although it is confusing to you, you need to understand that names and labels are of little use to us. We recognize others by their vibration, how they resonate with us. You will learn to do this in time, and your culture will also discard names and labels. Is categorization a form of control? Yes, but not always consciously. You are a young race who at times feels very much out of control of your own destiny. This has caused your societies to develop the need to categorize and label everything. You have forgotten your own ability to listen to your inner voice, your intuition that will free you from the need to label things. Are there actual beings from the Pleiades star system who have been contacting us? Yes, but rarely. They, like us, seek to help you and wish to do so without interfering with your spiritual growth. Do they know of your existence? Do you communicate with them? Yes. We have a mutual understanding and share a common purpose. They are far more advanced spiritually than you, and our communication is at a very different level. How can we know the difference between a negative being and a positive one? Their message will tell you everything you need to know. If you are on a positive path in your life, a negative message will not resonate with you, and vice versa. Are we as a species on a positive path? That is up to you. As we have said, you are at a crossroads. If you choose the negative path that those who are deceiving you would have you follow, you will experience great suffering, and it will push you to seek a violent revolution. This choice to use violence to end your suffering will start you down a negative path that will take thousands of years to correct. However, if you collectively discard your old ways of thinking and reject the illusion of separation and scarcity, realize that what you do to another, you do to yourself. You can ascend to your next higher incarnation. Not long after this session, I was doubting myself, doubting the whole experience, and began to think it was all my imagination. I was watching a YouTube channel called They Call Us Channelers, and I saw an interview with a woman named Nora Harold. I had never seen or heard of this woman before, never heard her message. However, I was intrigued, so I watched. When she began to channel the Pleiadians, I was completely blown away by what she said, to the point where I began to cry. She said, "We are not physical. We are a collective of light beings, existing at a 12th dimensional vibratory rate. There are physical Pleiadians who are also in contact with humanity. That's not who we are, but we are in contact with them." I was not expecting this level of validation of my own experience and the message I brought through. Even after that incredible moment of validation, I didn't quite know what to think. Was it just my imagination, or was it real? I didn't know, but I knew I needed to trust the message and let go of my expectations and let the information come through unhindered. So I began to ask more questions. So that's it for part 1 of this, my spiritual reawakening and my dealings with channeling. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll pick up with the rest of this in the next episode. I look forward to it. Thanks for spending time with me, and thanks for listening to Clarity of Vision.